Well, it's my pleasure to introduce Manuel Manga. He's spoken to us a couple of times in the past, and of course he has a fantastic style and a reservoir of good thinking. He thinks like a humanist. Let me just go over the wise words about him that he would like to share with you. Of course, the title of his talk is Becoming an Evolutionary Leader, Building a Just, Sustainable, Flourishing Civilization. And of course, he and I function in the same realm about how we might do that. He says everyone can be an evolutionary leader and contribute toward the great transition to a better world. We can contribute at the micro, meso, macro levels. Humanism has a lot to contribute toward a cultural, social evolution. Manuel Manga, an organizational consultant, facilitator, and leadership coach, will present his concept of evolutionary leadership, which is democratic, non-hierarchical, collective, and visionary. This concept is partly inspired by Julian Huxley's evolutionary humanism, which claims that humanity needs a psycho-social evolution. Let's have a good hand for Manuel, and then he's on.
All right. Thank you so much, Arthur, for that great introduction, and I'm happy to be here again. I believe this is my third time that I've come down from the Bay, the San Francisco, Oakland area. So I'm glad to be here. I had to get up really early in the morning, and my friend Feder, who's here, we had to coordinate and say, okay, I'll meet you at the BART at 8:25 so that we can catch the BART and get on to Palo Alto. So here we are by coordination of action. And so I'm glad to be here. And I'll follow the format, which is we have 60 minutes. And I'll talk for more or less 40 minutes, maybe around 40, so I'll leave at least 20 minutes for Q&A, you know, that way. And then there will be the lunch table if you have further questions. So I have about 40 slides, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but I tend to put a little more information because I know you keep them on your website. So rather than be stingy, I always like to share my knowledge. So I'd rather put 40 slides and only talk about maybe 20 or 30 of them. And the rest is yours. I mean, you know, if you want to get more, if you want to read them over again, you know, just go to the website, or you could have Arthur send them to you, or Martin, or me, whoever, if you're interested, okay? Or you could also go to my website, evolutionleader.com, and I have papers, videos, all kinds of stuff there if you want to become more informed about evolutionary leadership, okay? So today I have two big objectives. One is to share with you why I think we need more evolutionary leaders in the world. We need, in particular, we are at the stage of human evolution where we need evolutionary leaders to help us, to guide us to a better world, to a better future, okay? So that's one objective, to share with you that. And the second objective is also an invitation. I'm here to invite you up front, personally, to become an evolutionary leader. So it's an invitation. So if you've never been invited before, consider yourself being invited. As of today, at the end of this lecture, you say, okay, Manuel, I am an evolutionary leader. That would be great, okay? So that's an invitation. You don't have to do it, you know, but that's what I'm here. Those are my two objectives, okay? Usually you have to go through people who want to be leaders, and I teach leadership. I've been teaching leadership now for like close to 40 years, you know, in corporations. I started teaching leadership at a big corporation called Digital. I don't know if you remember Digital Equipment Corporation. You know, we were around, we were #2, we were big, and we started in Massachusetts, and we grew to 100,000 employees. And I was hired to teach management and teach leadership. So I started doing that since 1980. So, 1980, and now it's 2014, and we're talking what? 34 years that I've been doing work. And I've been teaching leadership at Digital. Then I went on to develop my own company on leadership. And I was teaching leadership. I'm still doing it in different companies. I work with Chrysler. I work with many corporations, in the world. And I'm still doing that. I'm doing a lot of work in Chile lately. But what I found out about 20 years ago was that most of the leadership, you could say leadership, courses, leadership programs, leadership programs in business schools. Most of those leadership programs were to make the current system, the current paradigm, more effective. Now, effectiveness is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, we should all be effective in life, at work. But the problem is when the effectiveness that we have today in our major corporations, our major institutions, is an effectiveness that in a way is destroying life on this planet, is destroying our future. So it's an unintended consequence. So I realized, wow, I'm teaching leadership at a major corporation. I would go to a major corporation and teach leadership, and I go, why am I doing this? Because they want to grow their company. Everybody wants to grow their company, grow profits, grow customers. Everybody wants to have bigger impact, become global. But what they don't notice is that while they are growing their company, they are also growing the destruction on our ecosystems, on a planetary species, on a civilization, but they're not talking about that. And this was my realization about roughly 15, 20 years ago. So I said, guess what, Manuel? I'm part of the problem, because I'm teaching leaders how to be effective in destroying the planet. Realize, and I'm getting good pay for that. I charge a lot of money. Here I don't. Here it's free. But if I'm doing this for a major corporation, like Tech Chile, where I've been doing work down there, it's a lot of money. So I said, I'm part of the problem. And the leaders are not aware that they are part of the problem. Now, you could go to an Amazon, or you could go to any bookstores, and there may be like 100 books on leadership. I mean, you name them. And I read a lot of them, and I studied with a lot of good people. And most of them are talking about leadership with the purpose of making effectiveness and making the current paradigm more effective. The paradigm that is not necessarily good for humanity. Okay? So that's one big realization that I had about 15, 20 years ago. And then I said, well, what do? I still like to teach leadership. I still think we need leaders. But we need a different kind of leader. So I began doing my research. And of course, since I was like in my 20s, I was a kind of a radical when I was in my 20s. And, I explored different alternative philosophies and stuff like that. And I think I was a humanist without knowing that I was a humanist. But, I was reading all these books, and, Buckminster Fuller. Anyone read Bucky? A few of you, right? I saw Bucky Fuller speak. He signed one of his books for me in, 1983. And the book that he signed for me was one of those books that really inspired me. It's called Critical Path. Critical Path. How designing the critical path to a better world, to a better future for humanity. And Bucky used to say, we can make 100% of humanity successful. Imagine that. He would say, and we have all the resources, all the tools, all the knowledge, everything that we need to make humanity 100% successful. Now, imagine that. He would say that. And people go, no, he's crazy. He's utopian. You know, I'm utopian, but I'm a pragmatic utopian, okay? Because I follow Bucky Fuller's thinking. If you do the math, we have it all to make it work. The other day, I had the pleasure of listening to a fellow from Stanford University, Mark Jacobson. He's a professor at Stanford University of energy. And he presented, he's got this thing called the Solutions Project. Look it up, www, the Solutions Project. Well, Mark Jacobson spoke at the Climate Change Conference in San Francisco last Friday, and I was there in San Francisco at the Unitarian Universalist Church, you know? And he spoke for 2 hours, and he said, boy, we have the technology, we have everything to make the whole planet energy renewable energy. We can do it. We can do it with wind, with solar, with water. We can do it. We don't have to do fossils anymore. Okay? He said, you know, we can do it. Now, it will take revamping the whole system. He said, we can do it by 2030. We can do it. But we know that the system doesn't going to let us do it by 2030. So I'm going to choose 2050, he said. But the good news was that he's got a solution. And I said, oh, he's talking like Bucky Fuller. The same thing that Bucky said in 1980. This guy, Mark Jacobson, but he's focusing on energy. He's saying when? 2014. I said 2008, 1980, 2014, right? It's like 34 years later, we're still saying we can make it work. We got the technology, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I just want to give you that as a beginning. So if you want to know where I get my ideas from, I get them like that, from crazy people, utopian people like Bucky, like Mark Jacobson, and other people, all right? So, so what are we going to do today? We're going to find out why we need evolutionary leaderships and why we need a different social evolution. So the purpose of evolutionary leadership is to facilitate a conscious cultural evolution toward a socially just, ethical, flourishing, and sustainable global society. And those are key important dimensions. You need justice. You need not just sustainability, we need justice and sustainability, but we also need flourishing. We need humans to be flourished, to develop their full potential, okay? We need to make humanity 100% successful, and we have the means to do that. So that's the purpose, to facilitate or contribute towards that. Evolutionary leadership is based on a new worldview that integrates the biological, the ecological, and the social dimensions of life. So we no longer have to only think about humans, which is, you could say, the social, but we also need to be responsible for the biological, the biosphere, because we cannot live without the biosphere. If we kill the biosphere, we're killing ourselves, okay? In the old days, people didn't have to worry about the biosphere. Now we do, because we're destroying it, okay? And we need to worry about the ecological also. So those systems are part of this, you could say, the new humanist, the new worldview that we need to evolve, okay? So that's the purpose. Now, that's a big invitation. You know, and I'm not saying that we're going to do this alone, because, as I said, you know, this model of leadership is non-hierarchical, is collective, collaborative, it's not heroic. So I'm not inviting you to be like the hero, right? Like the American Lone Ranger who's going to save the planet. No, we cannot do it that way. We have to do it collectively, all right? So here's another pragmatic utopian that inspired me. This was, I read Jonas Salk, his book, Anatomy of Reality, and I read his book, Survival of the Wisest. Imagine that. That book caught my attention. Survival of the Wisest. Okay? Now, most of you know who Jonas Salk is, right? All right. A lot of people don't know. I mean, he passed away, but he started off being a doctor. He invented the Salk vaccine for polio. But then in his later life, he became a philosopher. In his later life, and as a philosopher, he became an evolutionary philosopher. Now, he's a humanist, and he's an evolutionary philosopher, and this quote inspired me too. And he says, the most meaningful activity in which a human being can be engaged is one that is directly related to human evolution. So you get meaning from this, meaning. This is true because humans now play an active and critical role not only in the process of their own evolution, but in the survival and evolution of all living things. We have gotten to the stage in life where we now are the caretakers. We're the stewards of all living things on this planet. Man, that's a big responsibility. We never had that job before, and we're not prepared to do that job. But we need to do that job. So, therefore, human beings have a responsibility for their participation in and contribution to the process of evolution. Acceptance and acknowledgement of this responsibility and creative engagement in the process of meta-biological evolution consciously will bring forth a new reality. So consciously, the key word there is that we need to consciously say, yep, I want to be responsible for this evolution of humanity, okay? So that's one of the people that inspire me, Jonas Salk. So how do we make that social evolution happen? Well, we make it happen at different levels. We make it happen at the global level, social evolution. We make it happen at the personal level, your personal evolution. So each and every one of us here can do our own personal evolution. Today, as you walk out of here today, you go, yep, I'm an evolutionary leader. That's it. You can make that declaration. And we can all take local actions. Every organization, every community, so the humanist community of Silicon Valley could, it's looking for its future. Well, I think I heard Laura say that, right? Where's Laura? That you're going to meet about the future. Well, you could say, well, maybe this talk would inspire you to say that part of our local action is to become an agent of evolution for humanity, right? Okay, so again, that's part of the deal. So, and by the way, there's also this dimension where we can also think of social evolution in terms of future generations, not just who we are today. So Manuel, me, I'm thinking of my 3 sons. I have 3 sons. What is the future that I want to give my 3 sons? And also my granddaughter. I have a granddaughter that's 5 years old. What is the future I want to give my granddaughter? Okay, so we need to think, and not just for humans, but the species. The species, what's the future we want to give to the whales, the birds, and other species? So, I'm going to do this quick exercise with you. This is called the funnel. The funnel by the Natural Step, which is a company that specializes in sustainability. I'm going to ask you a question, 2 questions. The first question is, in this funnel here, this is a metaphor for the funnel that's taking us slowly towards collapse. Slowly towards collapse, whether we realize it or not. In fact, I was looking at your books here, and there's Collapse by J.R. Diamond, another evolutionary leader. There it is, Collapse, J.R. Diamond. How society choose to fail or succeed. And in this book, he says, we are heading towards collapse. Humanity is going to a collapse, whether you realize it or not. Now, a lot of people are not going to read 650 pages, I think. No, yeah. Most people are not going to read it. How many people have read this book here? Okay, wow, many, great. This is the work. You got it. So that's the funnel. So the question that I'm going to ask you is, what are the things that are taking place in our planet on a macro level that is increasing our potential for collapse, increasing our potential for collapse? Just think about what's increasing that's making us in a dangerous position. Yes?
Consumption, especially of fossil fuels.
Got it. What else? Population. Yes? Machines making humans obsolete. What else?
Soil degradation.
What's that?
Soil degradation.
Soil degradation. Perfect. What else? What's increasing?
Depletion of water atmosphere.
Depletion of water.
Ocean acidification.
Got it. Okay. So how about, okay, a couple of more? I mean, we could go on and on and on. I only want to do, normally I do this exercise for an hour and people go, oh my God, I can't believe it. Today we're only going to do it for a couple of minutes.
The disappearance of species.
Yes, the disappearing of species, yes?
Well, war.
War is increasing, right? It's going up, right? Yes? Toxics. Toxics? Yeah, the amount of toxic waste that we're putting here on our planet is increasing every day. Now, last month, for the first time in millions of years, the planet reached every day 400 carbon dioxide every day, 400 parts per million. Thank you, Martin. 400. The goal was to put a limit by, if you know this organization, 350.org by Bill McKibben, he said, we need to put a cap at 350. Beyond 350, we start being really in danger. Guess what? We have 400 in April, every day. And this was in NPR radio. And how many people saw that New York Times article this week? There was 2 papers published on Antarctica, right? The glaciers melting. Irreversible. Irreversible. You read it, right? Okay. So seawater is gonna, sea level gonna rise. So that's also increasing. CO2, climate change, climate warming, sea level rising, right? Bangladesh, goodbye. Okay, New York, goodbye. Florida, goodbye. Okay? So, what? Now here's the other question. What's diminishing? What's going down that also puts us in a trajectory of collapse? What's diminishing?
Our world resources.
World resources.
Clean air.
Clean air. What else is diminishing? Huh? Land. What else? Huh? People. Okay, we having population growth, but we also diminishing with people. Yeah, sometimes that happens. What else is diminishing?
Food supply.
Food supply. And somebody said before, species, right? Somebody said it here on this table, right? We're losing species every day. Okay? So we are also diminishing, what else, sir? Diversity. Absolutely. Diversity of life. We're losing all of that. So if you put those 2 forces together, this force going this way and this force, when you get this point here, and this is systemic. See, these are not independent little, issues, right? They are systemic. Each issue influences the behavior of the other issue. And most people do not understand the nature of this system. I call the nature of this system the evolutionary crisis. So if you want to call what I call the side of the funnel, I call it the evolutionary crisis, because that's where we are in the middle of. Jonas Salk called this epoch A. And he said, we need to move from epoch A to epoch B. Epoch B, which is a world that is just and sustainable. So what we need to do is move along that line and continue and to create this sustainable society, regenerative economy, new future, just flourishing, etc. So rather than heading towards collapse, we need to make an intervention and move forward to create the other one, which he will call, this is Epoch A, this would be Epoch B. And he's written a fantastic paper about how to make that change from Epoch A to Epoch B. It's on my website. You can read it, or I can send it to you. Okay, so that's the big challenge. That's the big invitation, that we need to make this big social, cultural evolution from Epoch A to Epoch B. Why? Because we are putting everything at risk right here today. And it continues to go. And most of our leaders don't see it yet. Or if they see it, they don't want to deal with it. So here's a little summary. Some of the challenges, I think you said it: rising seas, population growth, poverty, unsustainable economic systems, our addiction to consumerism, all right? Biosphere destruction. Some people say war, terrorism, hubris. A question that we don't have time today, but if we were doing this in a seminar, a longer seminar, would be, well, how did we get here? How did we get here as humanity? You know, what are the historical narratives that got us here? What are the assumptions that got us here? What are the paradigms that got us here? Most people don't take the time to reflect on that. Okay, the experts who look at making large global scale change say, if we want to go from the modern world to a future world, there are three basic scenarios that they point to. This is the study by the Telos Institute. He says, one scenario is we go along what we call conventional world. And we go along conventional world, and people pretend that everything is okay and everything is going to get fixed, and Obama will take care of it, or somebody will take care of it, or the UN will take care of it, okay? Or there's a technological fix. That's the conventional world. And the people who do this research said, yeah, there will be fixes, but in the end, it's still we're going to head to collapse if you continue in this world. On the other hand, the worst scenario is this one here, called breakdown. We go into that scenario, and that leads us to a civilization that's like a fortress. You know, like people will protect each other from each other. Like a fortress world, like barbarization. Like the people who have resources don't want others to have resources. That's the worst case scenario. We'll fight for water. We'll fight for food, etc. The best case scenario, which is the one that I'm inviting you all in evolutionary leaders, is to create this great transition at the top to build a sustainable world. We can do it, and we just have to work on that. We have the resources to do it, to move to the best one, that's the great transitions. Okay? So these are the global scenarios that people have researched. And of course, what I'm suggesting is that we choose this one here. New sustainability, eco-communalism, great transitions, and we could all live a much better world according to what these people have researched. And so we'll go along. So how do we do that? How do we do that? Well, we do that by moving from first recognizing that we are facing an evolutionary crisis, an unsustainable world, and that we need to move to a sustainable world. We need to go from Epoch A to Epoch B. I mean, those are the names that Jonas Salk gives, and I like that. I mean, going from an epoch to an epoch. And in order to do that, the work of evolutionary leaders is to change the mind, the consciousness of people. People have minds, worldviews, paradigms, and we need to change that. We need to evolve that mind, that paradigm, just like we have done in the past. You know, if you look at history, people slowly you know, eventually we got to the modern worldview, the scientific worldview, and eventually we made some progress. So it's possible. But we need to do it now in a much more, you could say, faster way. We need institutional evolution. We need systemic sustainability. In other words, we need our institutions to evolve, our major institutions. And we need a cultural evolution. Okay? We need a cultural. So it's not just changing the energy. One thing that I critique when I heard Mark Jacobson from Stanford last week talking about the energy, he said, we can change all the energy in the world to be renewable, and we don't have to change our habits. Well, I think he was trying to be like not too controversial. But the truth is, we need to change our habits of living, our habits of consumption. We need to change our habits. So to say that we're going to build a better world with renewable energy, but people are just going to go along doing what they always did, I don't think so. So we need a cultural evolution as well as institutional, okay, including our economic institution, government, education, etc. So that's the big journey. How do we do that? We do it by, you know, and you can choose to work in any one of these areas. Bending the curve means making an intervention in those systems. So, for example, instead of having war, which is, we'll have peace, okay? Instead of funding conflicts and war, I mean, the United States economy depends on war. It's a big part of the United States economy is war, selling stuff. We have to sell F-35s. We used to sell F-16s. You know, but the F-16s are not good enough. They don't have Wi-Fi. We need F-35s with Wi-Fi. I'm making a joke here. Because it's like, why the hell do we need an F-35 if the F-16 is capable of carrying 3 nuclear weapons? Do we need a plane that carries 4 nuclear weapons? That's crazy. It's crazy. Why are we building the F-35? Because it sells. All right? Not because we need it. Oh, the people in Massachusetts and GE, they need jobs. They need to build the F-35 engine. That's what John Kerry says. Imagine that. John Kerry, my senator, ex-senator. We need jobs. We need to keep those people working in Massachusetts. In GE, they got to feed their families, right? That's the whole cycle. So you can choose any one of these. Ecosystem, water, you know. I'm doing a lot of work in Chile. Chile is running out of water. The whole country is running out of water. There's not enough water for mining or growing wine or for giving water to the people. They're going to have a water fight. There's not enough water in the country for those 3 things. For wine, for mining. Mining takes a huge amount of water, mining. And for people. So this is what's going on. So you can pick any one of those and make a contribution. Climate change, CO2, like here, like this guy Mark Jacobson or Bill McKibben. They're trying to stop this, right? Which is going up and up and up. They're trying to keep it here at 350. Well, we're already at 400, so there's plenty of work to be done. Okay, this is a slide here that I don't have time to get into right now, but it basically tells you a lot of people working for social change are working on the proximal drivers. You know, like this guy Mark Jacobson. He wants to change the technology, which is good. You change what? From fossil fuel to renewable energy. Perfect. New technology. Nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is, it's not enough. Those are proximate drivers. You have to change also the ultimate drivers. Here you have to change the values and needs. You have to change the culture, the knowledge and understanding, and the power structure. Okay? The institutional power structure. If you really want to go deep into social evolution, you can't just deal with the...
Can you read out those?
Okay, the top ones, Martin? Yeah, population, economy, technology, governance. as examples. And there are people working on those, but it's not enough. Okay, so I mentioned that we need 3 types of evolution: the mental, mind, institutional. A lot of people kind of get a little scary about institutional. We're like, what do you mean? We're going to have to change the system? Yeah, we have to change the institutions, like education. What if education changed its purpose? What if Stanford and Harvard and MIT and all these big universities, California, said our purpose is to create a just, flourishing, sustainable world? What if? And we are going to educate people for that. What if? Instead of, we're going to create, every time you get on the BART, a new MBA program. Ever get on the BART lately? UC Davis MBA program. You get an MBA now in 2 hours. Every school is now offering an MBA. It's the sexiest thing alive now. Get an MBA, online, you name it. But what if the institutions change their purpose? To create a new human being, to create a new civilization, to create a new society. What if? Well, anyway, that's what we need, to change their purpose. And who's responsible for that? The leaders of the university. I mean, there's always a human behind this institution, right? There's always a president of a university. There's always a board of directors, people, right? With a big lot of money. But there's always people with a paradigm, with a worldview, with a philosophy, with a set of values. So never forget that. Behind every institution, there's people. Just like when we built this country with Jefferson and those people, it was just people saying, what kind of world do we want? Oh, we want freedom. Okay, freedom. What else do we want? Let's see. We want the pursuit of happiness. Okay, write it down, pursuit of happiness. What else? It was like a menu, right? That's how we made up this country. You know, writing, talking, and drinking beer in Philadelphia. That's what those guys did. You know, that's what they did. What else do you want? Freedom for everybody. Well, maybe not for everybody. The woman, not yet. They're too dangerous to give women freedom. You know, they think too much. Next century, we give the woman freedom. But that's what those guys did. Behind every institution, there's some human being with a worldview, with a set of values, with an agenda, and with an excuse. I have to send my kids to college. That's why I have to keep working for Google or IBM or HP, because I have 2 kids in college. Maybe most of you are beyond that stage here, but I just finished putting my last kid through college, you know? And my friend Fedor has a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, so he's got to worry about putting his kids through college. But that's the usual excuse that I give when I talk to people in big job corporations. I have to put my kids through college. That's why I have to destroy the planet. They don't say it that way, but but that's the reason. That's the excuse. What excuse do we have? Anyway, so sustainable development, and I'm going to move a little faster here. This was what our people that came up with sustainable development about 20 years ago, our Common Future, said. We need to create sustainable development. The forms of development that satisfy the needs of the present, while at the same time safeguarding the capacity of future generations to meet their own needs. All generations, species, etc. Okay, what do evolutionary leaders do? In a nutshell, the invitation to you to become evolutionary leaders is to be able to declare a vision for the future. And people who are evolutionary leaders are usually people that declare possible what other people do not declare possible, okay? So people like Bucky Fuller, who says we can make 100% humanity successful, or people like Jonas Salk, or people like Julian Huxley, or people like the Lieberts here, who wrote a beautiful book that I'm still inspired by, you know, Out of the Cage. You know, they dare to say what's possible, what other people say. What do you mean, climate change? What do you mean we can build a society and, you know, that people live in good communities and stuff like that? Well, they wrote a book about it. You know, that's what it takes. It takes to say you know, what's possible, what other people say is not possible. Okay? They declare futures. They generate worlds and action through language and conversations. They work on adaptive challenges. They think big, systemic, and strategic. They promote learning, change, evolution, make choices, mobilize people in action. Anyone can do that. You don't need any special magic powers or deities to be an evolutionary leader and do that. Any one of us can do that at the macro, meso, or micro level. Okay? How do we do that? Well, leaders need skills, leadership skills. Leaders need competencies. I call them competencies, leadership skills. And I have chosen a set of 7 competencies here that help you, an individual or a collective group of leaders, to get the work done. Because if we are going to get the work done of promoting cultural evolution, institutional evolution, a new paradigm, a new worldview, right? To build a new civilization that's just and sustainable, we're going to need tools to do that. So these are the tools. Number 1 tool is personal evolution. It starts with you shifting your worldview, shifting your mind that says it is possible, okay? To shift your mind from the fragmented worldview of today, the reactive, reductionistic worldview, to the holistic, systemic, evolved worldview that we need, okay? That's possible, okay? So it starts with number 1. 2, we also need to evolve our emotions in our language, our narratives, our conversations. We need to evolve. Today, most leaders are influenced by the emotions of fear. Fear, that's why I put emotions up there. Sometimes I think we humanists don't integrate too much the work of emotions. We need to, okay? Today, most people react out of fear. That's a very powerful emotion. We need to work out of the emotion of empathy, love, compassion, okay? So we need to have an evolution of emotion. That's why I put it here. The same thing with language, okay? Instead of having reactive language, we need generative language. We need systems thinking, on number 3. Systems being, systems thinking. We need to see that we live in systems. We all humans live in systems. All of us. Different types of systems. And most people don't pay attention to that. Most people are not even aware what those systems are. We need to build systemic sustainability. Sustainability for all. For humans, for species, for planet. Not just for people. For species, for planet. We need ontological designing as a tool. Ontological designing is the capacity, the skill set to design ourselves, design our systems, and design our future. That, in a nutshell, that's what ontological designing means. The word ontological means the study of human existence. That's what ontological means. So if we are going to exist as a species, then we need to invent the new species, the new human that we need to become. We need to design that. A friend of mine wrote a book called Becoming Human by Design. You know, very inspiring philosophy. Tony Fry. You know, he's an Australian philosopher. I'll mention his book in the bibliography. So we need to design our systems to be just and sustainable. Okay? Just like Jefferson designed. Who was Jefferson and Washington and Samuel Adams and Benjamin Franklin? They were designers. They were ontological designers. They sat down and said, what's the future of this country going to be? They call it a constitution. Okay, that's an example that I always like to give. Or the Declaration of Independence, right? We the people. You know, who's we the people? You know, a bunch of guys hanging around Massachusetts, right? We the people. I love American history, though. It's great, you know, because you really see what I used to live in Boston, and, you know, you walk around Boston, Paul Revere, right? Bunker Hill, the Tea Party, you know, a bunch of guys running around saying, we're going to make this happen, man. We're going to get rid of the British and party. Have a tea party. But first we got to get rid of the British. Today we got to get rid of some other stuff, right? And yeah, okay. We're going to call it the Green Tea Party, though. We need to do adaptive work and collaboration. And then finally, we need to work on evolutionary principles and scenarios of the future. They are wonderful scenarios of the future. The people this group that I work with in Boston called the Telos Institute, they have developed a set of scenarios, like I show you the 3 scenario. But if you look in detail at the sustainability scenario, you'll see that humans will have a much better quality of life because the emphasis will be on quality, not quantity. There'll be people learning for life, people education for life, health care, for all people on the planet. Now, we may have to give up a couple of cars here and there, you know, a big house and a few things, but we'll make it work for everyone, okay? So it's about quality. So we need those scenarios, and people need to know that. All right, so I'm going to end here for take the Q&A, and basically I'm going to just show some slides at the end. This is a slide on systems thinking that I always get a joke of. This is us pushing towards collapse and not realizing it's coming around. We don't see the unintended consequences. This is another way of looking at the evolutionary crisis. I mean, it's hard to read, but you can see that there's environment and culture and the stuff that you said. These are the types of systems. This is a quick snapshot of systemic sustainability. We need to build sustainability for the humans, for the people, the environment, and our institutions. And we need to take care of our 9 basic needs. This work comes from Manfred McNiff. He's a Chilean. I had the pleasure of meeting Manfred in Chile 2 weeks ago. He's like 85 and going strong. He's still feisty. He's still rebellious at 85. He's still pushing for a new paradigm of economy where we talk about the 9 basic human needs: identity, freedom, participation, leisure, creativity, subsistence, understanding, protection, and affection. We all need those. And today, we don't have enough leisure. Everybody's working too much for Google, 100 hours a week. Okay. Huh?
I get a day off a week now.
Yeah. Okay. The final choice that I want to leave you here, hold on. I want to leave you, we can make it happen. This one here, this funnel, we need to do learning, we need to apply good science, and we need to change our systems. And with that, I want to end this part of the lecture conversation. And here's a list of bibliographies with the books. You know, including the work of Tony Fry, Becoming Human by Design, and a whole bunch of other people. Those are good books. With that, question and answer, Q&A.
Okay, so thank you, Manuel. I know I've got the first person already lined up, and I will come around with numbers to everyone else who's got their hand up. So keep your hand up until I give you a number, and then we'll call them out.
Yes, hello, Manuel. Isn't the thing that created the problem the fact that humans have been as successful as we have been, and isn't it a sort of an ordinary pattern in evolution where something that's very successful takes over, it overpopulates, it depletes its food supply, and then it either adapts or it goes extinct? And I think if we look at the success of humanity is a problem. Anything that's successful is going to create its own problem. But now we're at the phase of, you know, either adapting or going extinct. But
right.
But the fact that we're in crisis is sort of like a natural progression of evolution. You know, if we weren't where we are today, we wouldn't be as successful as we have been.
Right.
And I think that.
But it's a success at what price?
Well,
and the price is that we may be going to extinction.
No, but we then have to adapt. But
yeah.
But I guess what I'm just saying is that this crisis was inevitable. That this is the way evolution works.
Okay.
And that it's not necessarily a bad thing unless we don't do anything about it. But,
okay.
But I'm just trying to acknowledge that, you know, humans have been successful and hopefully will continue to be successful.
Right, but I would say that we are today, we are too successful. So I use the word too successful, and that's it. But I agree with you. I think your evolutionary perspective is accurate, and the question is, are we going to wake up not to go extinct? Yeah, Martin.
So, your talk reminded me of a Churchill quote that I really like, which is, there's no such thing as public opinion, there's only published opinion. And I think what you're saying, if I understand correctly, what you're saying is the published opinion we need to be concerned about here are symbols of culture, are our laws, our regulations, our political systems, and money, in fact, is a symbol of power in many ways, however you get it, once you've got it. So my question to you is then, okay, I know what's published out there, I know what our laws are, I know what our systems are. Give some clear, focused, systemic changes we can make. What can we do to change the government system, to change the financial system, to change the legal corporate system then, that will substantially change people's culture, attitudes, and behavior?
Yes, Martin. The good news is that there are good people that have published. For example, a colleague of mine from MIT, economist, his name is Otto Scharmer. He just wrote a book called Leading from the Emerging Future. So it's a book about leadership. It's about building a new future. And the subtitle is From Ego System to Ecosystem. But his whole book is written to change and evolve the capitalist system. He says the capitalist system right now is in 2.0. We need to evolve it to 3.0, ideally to 4.0. So he's published. He's got a great economic critique of modern capitalism, and he has a solution for the future. The problem is, who are the leaders who are going to do it? But he's published that book. So I agree with you. Yeah.
Oh, hi, thank you. I have enjoyed this a lot. So one of the things that would need to change the way I see it, which you discussed, is the economic thought of today, because all politicians ever talk about is economic growth.
Right.
They don't really talk about quality of life, and it would be very difficult, I think, for a politician to say growth is not our most important thing. Maybe a little more equality. Maybe we don't need as many things. But anybody that says anything like that would not be elected at all.
Right.
So that, you know, maybe like you said, we don't need to work so long. We can enjoy life more. The other thing that always gets to me, and I love your optimism, but in order to do something like this, like you said, you need a lot of understanding. And religion to me always seems to be a big problem, because they don't want understanding. They don't want to necessarily learn things. They just want to believe what they hear. And how do you reply? How do you even, you know, communicate with people that don't have open minds?
Well, that's one of the. That's why I put the evolution of consciousness as one of the challenges for the path forward. But two things, just briefly. If you look at this book here too, Natural Capitalism. So again, Paul Hawken and Amory Hunter Lovins are saying it's not like we want to get rid of business. We want to get rid of the economic system that's destroying life. You still have room for a natural capitalism. And they're written a wonderful book that, again, people don't read, sort of like the Otto Scharmer book, The Leading from the Emerging Future. But more and more people are talking about how to evolve our economic system. Okay? So that's one. And two, the religions are institutions. just like I said, education is an institution, religion is an institution. We need to change the mindset of those leaders. We need to talk to them. We need to influence them. I had a lady in one of my seminars, at one of my talks that I did about 2 months ago. I gave like a brief lecture about, I don't know, 2 months ago. And she was there representing, she was a black lady, she was representing 500 Baptist churches from the South. Now, she was there not for evolutionary leadership. She was there to learn something called the art of hosting, something else. But she came to my talk that I offered, and I said, and she was like puzzled, and I said, look, your job as an evolutionary leader is to protect the sacred of life. And she goes, oh yeah, that's religion. That's what we're supposed to be doing, protect the sacred. So sometimes you have to use their terminology, their words, their worldview to make a bridge. Because once she realized that, the part of her job was, I said, and what if you change the mindset of 500 Baptist preachers? Anyway, I just wanted to give you that because it took that dialogue to make that happen. Okay, let me continue. Yes.
I'm interested that you use the term evolution or evolutionary change.
Right.
We're already at 400 parts per million.
Right.
Can we afford evolutionary change, or must it be revolutionary?
Good question. I mean, that gets us to what we call global strategy. There are people talking about the global strategy, about how do we get from here to there. I mean, people at the Telos Institute, the people who made this up, they have a strategy, they have papers, they want to, in other words, if we're going to go from here to here, we need a strategy. I say we need a global strategy that includes, collaboration of organizations, communities, thinkers, leaders across the planet. The good news is we have the technology to do that, whether it's Facebook, internet, you name it, YouTube, we have a lot of stuff. But that's a challenge for the humanist community of the United States. We cannot just say, well, we are going to just, meet every Sunday and blah, blah. We need to be part of all the communities who are trying to be like 350.org and all the, so there needs to be a network of communities of communities. You get what I'm saying? And that takes leadership to organize that. So some of you from here may say, well, let's dedicate a committee that networks the humanist communities across the United States with other evolutionary communities, because I would say there are many evolutionary communities, but they cannot do it alone. It needs collaboration. You get what I'm saying? It needs a strategy. That's what leaders do. They think strategic. They think long term. So you're not going to get from here to there without doing some collaboration. See this word collaboration? No organization by itself, and I work with a lot of NGOs, and I work with NGOs in Latin America, I work with NGOs in Africa. I mean, I work with Oxfam. Anybody knows who Oxfam is? Oxfam America? Some of you know, right? They want to end poverty. They want to end injustice. It's wonderful. It's great. I taught leadership with them. But guess what? Oxfam America is not going to end poverty by themselves. They cannot. They need to collaborate with other NGOs, with other institutions. So that's my answer to your question, sir. Okay? It may require revolution. Who knows? I mean, I'd rather prefer evolution. Okay, back there.
Very quickly, this morning, I had heard on the program of KCBS called In Depth, Mark Jacobson. He was interviewed. It's a great program. They repeated from 8:30 to 9 p.m. and no ads. And it was fantastic. I mean, he's fast and he's such a fantastic scientist. So I recommend that you listen to that program. If you miss it, they have it on the web several weeks from now. And the last thing is...
Good, thank you. Glad to hear that.
Well, this is very quick. This book that I ran into the library just a couple of weeks ago, called The Law of the Garbage Truck. And it's written by David Polay, and it's how to respond to people who dump on you and how to stop dumping on others. This goes right along with yours, because and it tries to get groups together, as you say, so they be better to others and others be better to them.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Right, and all I'm saying is Mark Jacobs is great, but he doesn't go far enough because we need to change culture and mind, not just energy. Okay, but good job, good. Another, we have question back here?
Yeah, I want to mention, I guess, two areas where we need change. We need to change the way we think. We get beyond the national interests to the global interests. We have to think of ourselves as one human family.
Right.
But we've been brought up since childhood to pledge allegiance to our nation.
Right.
And all that. So this is a worldwide problem. The other problem is, this is how we got here, is unrestricted national sovereignty.
Right.
National sovereignty. In today's world, national sovereignty includes a nation's freedom to start a war.
Right.
That's part of sovereignty.
Right.
And the freedom to build whatever weapons your technology can produce. So those are two major things. Well, another thing is...
Go ahead, I'm listening.
Another way of changing our thinking is think in terms of individual persons' responsibility rather than national responsibility. It isn't the nations that make the decisions. It's, as you say, the leaders of nations make the decisions. And so, for example, Putin is exercising Russia's sovereignty by taking military action.
Right.
So this is a problem all over the world. We need to change our thinking in those directions.
I agree 100%. I would say that what we have today is global anarchy. Global anarchy. Any country can start a nuclear war. Pakistan can start a nuclear war. India can start a nuclear war. The US can start a nuclear war. Anybody's got atomic weapons can start a nuclear war. We have global anarchy. And what I want you to say, what I want you to know is, I'm reading a paper. I haven't finished it yet. And it's published, the author is Robert Palke. He's a political scientist at the University of Peterborough, Ontario, Canada. And his paper is called Global Citizenship and Global Governance. And he says, time for us to evolve to global citizenship and global governance. And that's what this paper is about. And this paper is published at the Telos Institute, which is the think tank that I mentioned before that has the Great Transition Initiative. So if you go to their website, you'll see papers like this every month by great thinkers who are basically pushing the paradigm. And in this paper, this fellow is saying exactly what you're saying, okay? That we need, so one of the invitations that I want to make of you, not just to become an evolutionary leader, but I want to invite you to become a global citizen. If you already don't think of yourself that way, begin to give yourself that title. Begin to say, I am a global citizen. And we all can do that. There's no one that can, and the more we say that, who was Carl Kuhn, one of the humanists, right? Carl Kuhn, you know who Carl Kuhn is. He wrote a book called One People, One Planet. He's a humanist. People here have not read Carl Kuhn. How do you spell it? Carl Kuhn. C-A-R-L. Who was at the Humanist conference last year in San Diego? Somebody was there last year? Martin? You were there? You don't remember listening to him? He got up. He's like 85 years old. Got up there. He was... He's been on the national board. Right. He wrote a book called One People, One Planet. And he's a great humanist. He's an evolutionary leader. Except, who's putting that book into action? That's what we need to do. I mean, he says it very well in that book, okay? Global citizenship.
The same thing he's telling me for 53 years.
This guy here?
This guy.
He's a great guy, I'll tell you.
I'm a citizen of the world.
Okay, he's a citizen of the world. Okay, so as of today, begin to use that. Okay, one more.
So
do we have time for one?
Just about ready. We're going to do a quick one. This is our last one.
Okay.
What we need to do is get teachers to train our children.
Perfect. Perfect.
We need to start when they're 5 and go all the way through so we don't surprise them when they're 20 or 30. Right. They need to understand what the situation is really about.
Right. Teaching them empathy, teaching about ecology, teaching them about how to be a good human being, teach them ethics. It starts at 5 years old.
I agree.
I agree. I mean, that's the kind of change in education and institution that we need, not just wait until they get the MBA, because by the time you wait until they get the MBA, all they want to do is make money.
That's right.
Yeah, again, nothing wrong with making money to, for certain things. I'm not against money. I'm not against business. I'm just, the wrong priorities, that kind of stuff.
Okay, that was our last question. We do have a speaker table. If you have more questions or want to follow up on anything, let's let Manuel go through the lunch first and grab him at his table. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions and your enthusiasm.